viewership.
Put that on my
Okay.
mic.
And I think we're live. We are live. And here goes. 5, 4. No one's watching. 3. CGP Video Pictures presents Trek Tonight Season 2. This week, Strange New Worlds. With your hosts, Christopher Pitcher, Leo Byrne-Janicek, and Keith Jacobson. Tonight's review, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Now live from New York City, Wilmington, Delaware, and Everett, Washington, it's Trek Tonight. Hello there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Trek Tonight. I am Chris Pitcher, your host, along with my good buddies, Keith Jacobson and Leo Janicek. How are you guys?
Doing okay.
Good. I'm looking forward to a interesting discussion tonight because I know we all come into this type of a story with a different perspective.
Yeah.
And I was saying to the guys earlier, the fellas, I was saying maybe I need to stop watching it at 2:30 in the morning because a lot of times I watch it at 2:30 in the morning. I'm all excited. I wake up for some reason, or I've actually set an alarm, and I get all pumped up and I watch it, and I kind of go, okay, yeah, that was all right. And then I watch it again later on during the next day for a second viewing, and then I see more things and I get more excited. Now, I didn't get to watch it a second time today because I was working in my garage trying to clean things up. So I'm still stuck with my original opinion, but that's okay. So I don't know, guys. What do you think? First impressions. Keith, I'm dying because I know how you feel about time travel. I know that not only how you feel about time travel, but specifically the type of time travel
Yes.
You have to go back and fix something, and that's exactly what this was.
That is, I think, the worst kind of time travel story. It's so much a time travel story that it's a cliche.
Yep.
So let's talk about instead of my personal prejudices, which we will get to. And I'm fully aware that this is a personal prejudice on my part against us. And other people will probably think I'm just an old white-haired grognard who's yelling at kids to get off my lawn for it. But that said, there were things I really did like about, just the individual elements of this episode. I liked La'an, and I liked Kirk, and if you just set aside the whole time travel paradox issue, the story itself was not terrible. I think there were good parts about it.
Yeah.
There was good action to it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a freaking time travel story, and it's the worst kind of time travel story.
Yeah.
I keep trying to figure out how I can explain this in a way that makes sense to people, because most people don't look at me like I'm going, well, okay, that's weird.
It's funny, Keith, because early in the week, if you remember, we were chatting online, and I said, it's going to be interesting to see if Keith likes this, can still say, I loved it, and you were like, well, I haven't seen the sneak preview yet, and I'm like, okay, well, we'll see.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So, I'm just going to say right off the bat, this was not my favorite episode of Strange New Worlds.
Okay.
Dare I say, of all the episodes of Strange New Worlds we've had so far, which I have generally loved, this one's okay.
Right.
It is probably my least favorite of any episode of Strange New Worlds that we have seen so far. Which is not to say, like I say, it's not to say there weren't things I didn't like about it, because there were things I like about it. But it's like,
you know what, Keith? Unlike last week, where you and I, threw the gauntlet down a little bit. I'm in agreement with you. But how did you
Yeah.
feel, Leo? Just
It's
first impression.
interesting. I'm as much as I love this. A real parallel to this might be Star Trek 4, the one with the whales.
Okay.
He likes to say.
Right.
I'm normally. I was the thing that disappointed me about Star Trek 4, although ultimately I loved the movie, was that it was set in the present day, and I'm like, if I want to see the present day, I'll just walk outside. But which this also has. I'm not going to call it a problem. That it has this feature.
Right.
I thought it was. I looked at it as a character study for La'an. Now,
Right.
there have been some people who disliked your character initially, thought she was sort of like this bratty character, and that she was sort of like one note, and there was some people did not care for her.
Right.
But I always feel like you got to give these characters time. If they continue along the same path week after week, then you'd be like, okay, I guess they are one note, or they're not that well written.
Right.
We've gotten to see more elements of her as she went on. This is the first time we've got to see her be vulnerable.
Right.
I thought she and the actor who plays Kirk have had a great chemistry.
Yeah.
Apparently, they've become very good friends and
Okay.
used to crack each other up, and much to the consternation of the crew, who was trying to get the shots. And they did shoot this in Toronto, and it was very funny when when they first go back, and Kirk said, "Well, this looks like New York mid 21st century." And she said, "No, it's
I
Toronto."
loved that. I love
you know,
that. That was in my notes. Yeah.
Which is because Toronto's often shoot movies and TV shows in Toronto as a substitute for New York or Chicago or other large cities because of its and I don't say this in a derogatory way, but this kind of generic nature of this sort of the way the city looks.
And I think there's a lot about the way Toronto is designed as far as street signs and stuff that looks very similar to New York.
I would say if you've never been to New York,
Manhattan.
it's a good substitute for New York.
Yeah, especially Manhattan. Yeah.
But so that was sort of a nice little in joke. But I liked seeing her be more vulnerable, and this sort of growing little romance between them was very charming. And
I thought her crying at the end was probably one of the best performances she's given so far.
It is. Now here's somebody who keeps everything bottled up.
Right.
Her rage, her sadness, her anger, her joy is all like locked away, deep in the vault. And she just went through this very cathartic adventure. Maybe seems like the wrong word for it, like experience.
Right.
For a number of reasons. And the idea that she's finally, and she just sort of like breaks down in this, I thought resonated very strongly. I'm looking at it as a character piece.
Right.
And one of the things, and spoilers again, if you haven't watched the episode and you're watching us, thank you, but why?
Right. Exactly.
We're going to be, pulling up the spark plugs and so on.
Yeah. Go watch it and then come back and tune us in afterwards.
The young woman who helps them out, who turns out to be a Romulan spy, she says, "I've been here since the 1992." Which is when the eugenics wars were supposed to take place. And when you write that in the late 60s, it seems far enough away that nobody's going to care. I'm sure the writers weren't thinking like, well, our fans are really going to cut like in the 1990s. We better come back to this.
I thought it was a great, and I don't want to call it a retcon, but I thought it was a great way to address why the eugenics wars didn't actually happen in 92 because she said something happened that stopped them from being able to do that. So I thought that was kind of cool. The time
itself keeps sort of almost resetting things.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a very elegant way of addressing it because Voyager visited Earth in the 90s and there was no headlines like Khan takes over, Mongolia, and people were like, whoa. There was part of the United States was not run by a genetically altered Superman. So
and it also felt very like a very Doctor Who concept. Doctor Who to me deals pretty well, obviously, with time travel because that's what it's about. But by her saying that about things resetting itself and certain things, just being predetermined and constant, I thought that was kind of cool because that's one of the things I like about Doctor Who. There are many things I like about Doctor Who, but it was one of the things I liked. So it I don't know, it helped ease the time travel story a little bit for me in that. But I thought we were all going to be at different positions on this, but I actually suspect maybe we all felt the same way.
Yeah, I don't, like I said, it's not that I dislike time travel. I certainly
No,
don't have
I
a
like
problem.
it. I like it fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd much rather be looking at the 23rd century than the 21st century because, again, if I want to see the 21st century, at the door,
Yeah.
it's all there. But I like the characters. I like that we got to see Pelia in the beginning because also let's talk a little bit about the cold open, where you get to sort of see what the day-to-day life of being the security chief on the Enterprise is like, sort of settling disputes with people.
Right.
And there was one crew member who's like, this ring was given to me by the matriarch of my family, and there's the new transporter chief Kyle was like, there's like the idea is like the transporter buffer doesn't steal things. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
She's like, all right.
Yeah.
And she has to tell Spock that somebody's complained about his playing the
music.
harp too loud.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like, like as if he would be playing his axe,
Yeah.
And he's like,
yeah.
Well, who complained? He said, well, it was anonymous, and that it wasn't.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It was just enough of a pause that she was like, and he says, well, I endeavored to play like less strenuously or stridently.
Yeah.
And he's like in his bathrobe, which was great.
I thought that was wonderful. Yeah. By the way, I put it up on the screen, but Angela does say yo.
Hi, Angela.
Yo, Angela. Thank you.
Yo. And it was a while ago, but we just couldn't help ourselves yakking. We just had to keep it. And before you go anywhere, I've got thumbs up from John Van Gostein, Chris Mitchell, and Scott Taylor. So thank you,
gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for watching.
The final bit of business with Leanne in the beginning is her talking to Pelia. She's like, how like searching through people's belongings endears them to you. And Pelia is apparently, because she's lived thousands and thousands of years, has accumulated quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
and
but
she's like
she's also an art thief.
She is as it turns out, she's an art thief. And one guy is holding up one of the security guys, and he's like, "That's a forgery." So you can tell the Louvre they can stop calling me, And she's like, "Well, I think you need to take this up with the captain."
Mm-hmm.
And when they are stuck in the 20th century and they're trying, there was a big explosion at a bridge in Toronto. It's not a real bridge, unfortunately. Right. A very cool CG bridge, which I think might link Canada and the United States. Maybe I'm thinking.
I don't know.
Because they talked about how it's like the world getting smaller and linking nations. There's an explosion in terms of it used a photonic bomb, and they're trying to figure out how to find it, and since they don't have a communicator or phaser or a tricorder, they have to figure out how to identify this radiation, and neither one of them has the tech skills to kit bash anything together.
Yeah. And so they make the assumption that Pelia will know how to do it because in the 21st century she's an engineer.
Yeah.
However, in that time period, she's just a wackadoo art thief. Who runs
I work in retail.
This strange shop where she just hoards all this shit. So she doesn't really know how to do it, but she does give them the idea. And I kind of loved this when she was talking about divers' watches from the 80s.
Yeah.
I just remember every yuppie in town had to have a diver's watch.
Sure.
And the idea that the phosphorus in them reacts to a certain type of radiation, and that after a while they stop glowing.
Right.
And I think I've had watches where I look at it and go, that doesn't glow anymore. Didn't really think much about it. I don't know whether that was real tech or whether it's made up for the show. But
Craig, if you're watching, please advise. but friend of the show, Craig Lubin, who is an expert here.
So
Angela says, okay, and this is something Angela and I are going to duke it out in overtime. Angela says, she is an awesome wackadoo art thief.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree completely.
I agree.
Freaking nuts! I can't stand it.
I'm enjoying her
At any rate,
rather unorthodox energy that she brings.
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
But they sit around in her Vermont sort of, sort of, antique / thrift shop / art stolen art vault, and they're drinking some beers, and it's kind of because you get the impression like they're a little buzzed, like they're not like falling down drunk, but even she's slurring her words a little, and that's where they figure out how to use the watch, and it has to be exposed to the air, so they take out the crystal, and there's a lot of
wasn't too happy with in the beginning because it was devaluing the watch. I thought that was good.
But I also let's I'm going to go back a little earlier, and they get there. They also realize, well, it's freezing cold because it's winter in Toronto, and they just have their Starfleet togs. Yep, there they are in an alleyway, and they we need to get some warm clothes, and then they realize, oh, people use currency here. So Kirk's like, "Are you a fast runner?"
There's a shot of them in a clothing store. Yeah,
there they are. But they fake out. She drops a wallet into somebody's shopping bag, and they leave, and it sets off the alarm, and then they're able to get out in the sort of the distraction.
Which I thought, man, what a great trick! If I ever want to take a 5-finger discount,
there you go.
Yeah.
But
that is what we watch Star Trek for, to learn.
It is to learn how to
new crime techniques. I did love when they both go into. They pick some clothes and they come out of the
and they're wearing the same
they're
thing.
both identical. And Kirk's like, "Fine, I'll change."
Yeah, I thought that was great.
But that was also
so for me, I think really one of the charming things about this episode, because I will also, boy, I'm Mr. Negative, aren't I? I've also have gone on record for saying that I was never 100% sold on the casting of the actor, just visually, for playing Captain Kirk. He was dark-haired when I thought he should have been sandy brown-haired, and so on and so forth. But he was very angular, and Shatner was a little, not less so. But at any rate, what I really liked how he developed the character in this episode.
Yeah,
and I felt like you got to see a lot more of the classic Kirk in this, in a way, as a young man than you've seen so far, which is great. Now, my only qualm with that is he's kind of coming from a dark future.
Yeah.
So maybe he was a little too jocular and jolly from a guy who was coming from a place where the Earth was on its own, having to defend itself against all sorts of alien attacks.
Well, I don't know. But I'm not sure. I mean, there were dark elements in that future.
Right.
But I'm not entirely certain he's coming from a future that is super dark. Yes, there is no Federation in this. Earth is it's on its own. But they've still got the resources to build a Constitution-class starship.
Right.
We don't know what his mission is, and while the Romulans are a threat, it's not said that they're at war with them. In fact, it's even implied that they're not, because the reason they don't want to come to Vulcan's aid is they don't want to get embroiled in a war with the Romulans. So,
although he said we can't fight a war on two fronts. So.
Yeah,
right. So I'm guessing the Klingons.
Maybe.
But the point is, we don't know exactly how dark this future is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's bad for Earth, as you find out that Earth is bad. And first of all, I love the way they figured out how to make money. Kirk hustles chess. Now, if you recall, the very first time we see Kirk, in the original series, he's playing 3D chess with Spock, and he wins.
Yeah.
So Kirk is pretty much, you got to figure, if he's beating a Vulcan, he's got to be an excellent chess player. And the fact is, he just hustled these people playing chess, which was great.
Angela says, matching outfits.
Indeed,
Yes,
indeed.
it was adorbs.
Craig Lubin also joins us. He goes, hey, guys, sorry, ISP was out the last few minutes. That's all right, Craig.
Stupid ISP.
And then
So,
Angela jumps in and says, Craig Lubin, Leo asked you to chime in on the Detecto Watch.
Yes, I did.
And then Craig says the future is dark enough for Kirk to like black.
Yes. So, but I did like that because it was kind of both a lighthearted moment, and it also ties it into a bit of Kirk that's not normally explored, but it is sort of, in his background. I thought that was a nice nod. I love the fact that he gets a couple of hot dogs, and they're like, and he gives her the hot dog, and she's like, for some reason doesn't want to eat it. Like, I don't know what. Like, she doesn't say like I'm a vegetarian. I don't know. She's just being kind of a stick in the mud.
Yeah.
He's, well, I'm your superior officer. I'm ordering you to eat it. She's like, well, you're not in Starfleet because it's the United Earth Fleet,
right?
As he said earlier on.
Yeah.
And he's and he also find out that because nobody can live on Earth because it's just like fallout and ash, that he's never seen a sunset. I mean, he's seen pictures, but he's never seen one in real life. Right. So that was kind of like a nice moment where he's sort of, enjoying that. And she does relent and enjoys the hot dog.
Yes. And it made me think of Craig Lubin and I when we both worked for Ziff Davis, annoying everybody in the office by buying hot dogs for lunch and bringing them up with the red onion sauce on them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a dirty water dog. That's a New York tradition.
Yeah, dirty water New York dog. But yeah. No, I liked all that. I thought that was great. So my point is that, yes, what I liked was you got to see the actor flush out the character more.
Yes.
And I thought he did a really nice job with that. So his Kirk, to me, is a lot more likable. Now, is he going to be a little bit different when you see him in his own timeline? I don't know, but I don't think so.
I mean, he seemed to be like, when she contacts him, we're jumping all over the map here, but when she contacts him at the very end of the episode,
right?
And he has that kind of charm, and he's kind of like, basically, like, she comes up with this very tenuous excuse to call him up, because I'm the security chief on the Enterprise. He's like, oh my God, what did Sam do? What did he do?
Right.
Right. Like, it isn't. No. He's fine. Nothing's wrong. I just wanted to make sure something in his file was missing, and find it. He was born in Riverview, Iowa, which has become canon, and that town does do a Star Trek celebration annually. By the way, also we find out that Kirk was born in space.
In this one on the USS Iowa.
On the USS Iowa,
which
is kind of maybe a way of the universe sort of doing as good a course correction as you possibly could.
I think this is great. This is terrific. Craig points this line out. I would spend 6 months in a Denebulan prison if I could learn the Vulcan nerve pinch and how to make soup in a toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can still learn how to make soup in a toilet now.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's stopping you except your wife and common sense.
Just tell your wife, Craig, just tell your wife not to use that toilet one day, and you're going to make soup in it. And you're good.
I will not.
And she'll go back to using it after you're done.
Yeah.
Glad I live on another coast. Yeah. I got an easy excuse to get out of that dinner invite.
Yeah.
Oh, Craig. Yes, I will torture people with my dirty water dog specials in my company in New York City's office. Yeah, I agree. So
it was it was those little touches that I thought were very nice. And also, before they even know what's really going on, because also, again, I'm jumping all over the map. We didn't do it like a real breakdown.
Right. If people have seen it, they know the story.
Yeah, they know the story.
We can talk about whatever ideas we think are cool as they come to us.
When Leon meets the temporal agent, who's wearing like a 20th century or 21st century sort of suit and tie, he's got a bullet wound, which is something you don't see in the 23rd century.
Right.
And he gives her this gizmo and says, "You've got to get to the bridge." And she takes it, and he disappears, and there's this, sort of like temporal wave, I'm going to call it. And she goes to the bridge, and that's when she sees Kirk. And also, they have different badges. They don't have the Delta. They have like this sort of more lumpy-looking sort of badge. And also,
if I have it. Yeah, there's sort of a picture of it.
Yeah. And they Kirk is actually pretty chill for somebody who just appeared wearing a variation on their uniform. Like he doesn't like call security right away. But both Uhura and Ortegas give her a look like, who is this bitch who just walked up to our bridge? Like they're really giving her the hairy eyeball.
Yeah.
But you know, as we find out,
there you got a good look
at
it. There you got a good look at it. Yeah,
and
that's it's like a like a 5-pointed star in a way, or something.
It is, yeah. And they because this bridge in Toronto blows up, and she was like, "Go to the bridge." But and just before that, they're arguing like, "Well, whose timeline is right?" He's like, "How do you know yours is right?" She's like, "Well, the Federation is this utopia, and Earth is whole, and we explore." You're a soldier, but you could be an explorer. And he's like, "Listen, all I have to do is nothing, and just explore the minibar and wait for this to all happen." He's not wrong if you assume you assume your timeline is the right one.
Yeah.
But
Craig points out just quickly, and then I'll let you go, Keith. He likes the bit with Kirk confusing Toronto for New York City. It has passed for New York City and Chicago and many Hollywood projects.
Yes.
Yeah, we had talked about that a little bit in the very beginning, Craig. But yeah, that's great. Go ahead, Keith.
And I like what happens, how they choose, what puts Kirk over the edge to decide to change, to buy into La'an's plan.
Yeah,
Sam's alive.
Yeah, right.
I think that's the whole reason he buys into it, is because in that future, in La'an's future, Sam's alive.
Right.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, which is cool.
Because he also said, I know I exist in your timeline. We've never met, but I've heard all these stories from Sam, and he's like, he's very taken aback.
Yeah.
It was a very lovely moment, because I think that was the turn for him.
Yeah.
Is that his brother was alive?
Who else enjoyed the callback to a piece of the action when Kirk tries to drive the car and it goes in reverse?
Oh, that was great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
There was a nice little nod to that.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, no, I know what I'm doing." And she's looking at him like, "You don't know what you're doing."
Yeah.
By the way, they shot all the stuff they shot in the interior, not the exterior shots, but when they were in the car driving, was done with a screen, much like they shoot The Mandalorian, and they've been using that same technology.
Oh, neat.
Because it looked like they were driving down the street.
Yeah.
Or probably, normally they would put it on a rig with all these cameras, and there would be a guy on top with the steering wheel doing all the driving.
Right.
Like we saw them do that in season 2 of Picard in the behind the scenes. They talked about that.
Right. Right.
But that's like this new technology is really allowing them to do all sorts of stuff, and that's cheaper than you can have a second unit be shooting a car zooming around the streets of Toronto, and that's cheaper than having like your 2 leads in the car, which ups your insurance because that could be dangerous. You just do it in the studio.
Now, what did you guys think? We've sort of gotten. Leo, you're right. We're jumping around, but what did you guys think about the way they introduced the Romulan assassin and what her character was like? She definitely seemed like a foil hat wearer, and how she saves them from getting arrested by the cops. That was all interesting to me.
I thought I liked that bit. I liked the little fact that they while they're having lunch, they're flipping through screenshots that the Romulan agent is showing them, and Kirk sees a still of a Romulan warbird, and of course in this timeline, in La'an's timeline, La'an hasn't seen that yet, so she doesn't know.
Right.
She doesn't know, but in Kirk's timeline, they have. So
going back and thinking about it, though, it's sort of an odd reveal for her character to do, don't you think? Because it definitely tips the hat to say Romulans are involved in this somehow.
Well, I think because she's talking to them, and I think she sort of has an idea that there's something because she doesn't recognize Kirk right away, as she reveals later. But she knows that they're interested in this and they might be from the future. She doesn't know 100%,
Right.
but it's like a way of like, she might be putting that to gauge their reactions. Now, it's interesting talking about whether people have seen it now. There was a Romulan Federation war or Earth war prior to the Klingon war.
Right.
And they had to have seen, because the cloaking technology didn't really come in till the TOS era.
That's true.
So
I'd forgotten that.
they may know what like Romulan sort of design looks like.
They just didn't know what the people looked like. They knew
Right,
what
yeah.
they looked like. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Although, as I recall, in that episode, they didn't recognize, when they finally saw the Romulan ship, they didn't recognize it as Romulan at first.
Yeah, I don't remember, but you may.
I don't think they did recognize it
Yeah.
as a Romulan. Maybe they did. I don't remember.
I think there's a little bit of wiggle room with that, but yeah.
But regarding why she gets interested in them, remember when they first meet her, they're looking at pictures on her camera.
Right.
And they see pictures of the debris. And La'an goes, there are the burn marks of a photonic bomb.
Right.
Now, she doesn't say that in front of them, but the Romulan agent knows exactly what she's looking at. She knows that those are burn marks of a photonic bomb.
Yeah.
And so she recognizes that they recognize it. And so that's when she gets interested and decides to see if she can somehow use them to further her mission.
Yeah, I just thought it was an odd reveal for her to show them a still of a Romulan ship in the sky, if she really was a Romulan agent. Well, it was something, but so what it did for me was it made that it kept, for me as an audience member, the idea that she's just a conspiracy theorist UFO person.
Yeah.
But when you really think about it, if she suspected them of having any knowledge of anything that was going on at all, it was an odd play to show them that particular picture. But
well, she was hoping that they would lead they would lead her to the secret lab, which they did. So her plan worked.
Yeah, and maybe that was part of the point. Maybe the point was it wasn't as important to conceal who the enemy was as it was to intrigue them enough that they would go there.
Yeah.
Craig says Keith is correct. In Star Trek: The Original Series, they did not recognize the bird of prey. It was a newer model and a prototype. The Romulan ship and the wars were older and a different class of ship. And yeah, I think you guys are both right on that. Now that Craig says that, I remember that, I believe. Yes. So, cool.
But, I mean, he's from a different timeline, so maybe he's seen it because she doesn't recognize it.
Now, I will say, and we've sort of covered this a little bit, but I think overall, the actual time travel mystery story was a little bit bland, but I thought the characterizations were so good that I was able to not care quite as much about that. But there just really wasn't that much going on, really, in it. It wasn't that big a mystery to try to solve. It wasn't a real risky thing they just said, they figure out, okay, yeah, and eventually they figure out, yeah, she's the bad guy when they're inside the thing.
Right.
And then they realize they got to stop her, and that's the end of it, Now, it was interesting, very interesting decision that La'an makes. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because one of the things that she likes about Kirk and she likes about this universe that she's in is that no one knows who she is. No one recoils at her last name. And that's very freeing to her, because she have that issue that clearly hangs over her all the time. I guess it'd be like, well, my name's Jimmy Hitler, So when she ends up finding the room with, little Lord Conleroy in it, she has to make a decision. Does she kill him and prevent the war and basically prevent herself? Because had she died at that point, she wouldn't exist. Or does she allow him to do what he does because it ends up having a positive effect on humanity and the rest of the galaxy. So it was interesting.
Well, I mean, obviously, she. I mean, I think it just might just boil down to the fact that she can't kill a child.
Yeah, but I thought there was more to it than that.
I think the thing she had to make a choice, and she had the gizmo, and the Romulan agent said, "Listen, this will protect you from anything. Like if you kill him, you won't disappear. You can live any life you choose. You won't have that burden anymore." And you could see that it almost, maybe for a moment, it's tempting because she's been living with this, shadow over her life.
Right. Yeah, I forgot that she could have survived it. That's true.
But I think part of it is because she knows that eventually it'll produce the Federation. And partially, he's still, right now, he's an innocent child. And it was sort of an interesting moment because he seemed a little like frightened the way a child might be. Like, I'm glad that he wasn't like this imperious little shit.
Yeah,
like he was just a kid.
Right.
Right. He looked like he was maybe 6 years old. I don't know. I'm really bad at guessing the ages of children. Would you say that's right, Chris?
Yeah, I'd say he was probably about 6. I think you're right.
Yeah,
I'd say maybe a little older, 6 to 8, I think.
Okay, fair enough. So, again, like I said, I don't have any kids, so
my daughter is 8. It seems older than that, but that's just me.
Wild speculation.
Yeah.
But it was this moment where she's looking like he's innocent at this point. He hasn't done anything terrible yet.
Right.
He has the possibility, much like her, she has the potential to do wonderful things or terrible things, as all people do. But ultimately, Earth had to have the Dark Ages before they could have their Renaissance.
Yeah. And it was a really great moment to me when she's drying his tears.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was really cool. I
quite like that because
I don't know why it evoked an emotion for me, but it did, because it's like she's trying to care for him anyway, even knowing, because he is a child, knowing what he turns into.
Yeah.
But
like the whole thing of like, do you go back in time and kill baby Hitler?
Right. Right.
So, but ultimately I think it was probably the right choice, obviously, because it maintained the timeline, but it was. I thought it was a very emotional moment. And then, she gets a visit. She goes and she comes back. She uses the gizmo and goes back.
Yep.
And she's still in her, I've forgotten the name. I don't remember the name of that particular Canadian clothing chain, but she still has her hoodie and their leather jacket and so on.
Yeah.
And she walks on the bridge and Peli is like, the statute of limitations on that, expired years ago. And Una's like, is there really a statute of limitations for like looting priceless artifacts? which is funny, although you think Una might be like a little more like lenient given her what has just happened to her. She might not be as quick to j'accuse. But she's not technically not wrong, but
well, and again, let's look at that. That's an interesting point you bring up, Leo. And I let's throw one thing out there. This is patterned on classic Star Trek.
Yeah,
classic Star Trek, from one episode to the next, didn't have a lot of continuity. So you don't know, this could have happened 9 months later after all that. And Una's gotten comfortable with how everything worked out, and now she's not as. You're right.
It's not a big. It's not a big problem, but I just thought
it points to what I think is, it points to the individual storytelling of the episodes that they're trying to emulate from the original series. So
and it's funny because La'an goes on the bridge in these 21st century clothes, and both Uhura and Ortegas are like looking at her like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Let's talk time travel a minute, because this actually segues into a time travel. I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm not going to let this go.
No, please. I've been waiting for this.
So you're right. She's wearing the 21st century digs when Lon steps on the bridge. Ortegas and Uhura give her the side eye, like they're going, "What the hell are you wearing?"
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Pelia recognized her. And I'm pretty sure that the adventures of Kirk and Spock, of La'an and Kirk in time are what inspired Pelia to become an engineer.
I would agree.
And as far as
maybe.
time travel goes, that is the kind of time travel I do enjoy. I like, because it's where when you go back in time, you just participate in the events as they actually happened, and you don't really change anything. You were just part of history. You were always part of history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I would have assumed that it just all reset and that then she wouldn't have recognized.
I hate the reset. I hate
I
that
don't
thought.
think it reset because it adjusted the timeline back to, let's call it,
To
the
what-
prime
yeah.
timeline.
Right.
So
so
I'm confident.
In that, she never would have. The only person that was protected.
Did I do that?
Kirk wasn't. Did you do what? You're still here.
But Kirk, that timeline disappeared in.
I can't hear
Yes,
anything.
Kirk.
I did something on my end.
Oh, okay.
How about now? Can you hear me now? Can I hear you say
Yeah.
something? Okay,
I
good.
we
Yeah,
can
we
hear you.
could hear you all, but
I accidentally hit something on my keyboard that muted everybody. So
Yeah.
that was me. I did that. That was me.
Angela says, "I'm calling bullshit on a person learning from activities in another timeline." Oh, Angela.
well, I guess I've lost all those college credits.
So as I was saying, I'm pretty sure that Pelia was always inspired by Kirk and La'an. It just is until she sees La'an step on the bridge in her 21st century digs.
Dogs.
Maybe.
Togs,
Maybe
thank you.
Togs.
That's the word. Togs. Digs
So
are something
Togs
completely different.
Yes.
Digs are something completely different.
So you're
Togs.
saying that visual jogged something in
That
her.
visual jogged her memory, and she remembered these people that she saw 300 years ago.
Because
Yeah.
in my opinion, she didn't see them at all. Once they reset things, she shouldn't have seen them.
Nothing got reset. The timeline was restored to the way it was supposed to be. I don't believe I'm arguing temporal mechanics.
Actually,
I'm going to burn in hell. But
no, you might be right because
nothing got reset. Everything, which brings me to the part of time travel I don't like, and this is a prime example. Why did the assassin turn to powder when she got killed? Now, when I first,
I think
What?
her body. I think her body got yanked.
No,
back.
I
Yeah.
will explain it because they show
Oh.
you. She gets shot and she's dying. She touches sort of something on her neck. There's a glow. So clearly she had a suicide implant.
I missed that
Gotcha.
part.
Okay,
I missed that part.
gotcha.
Boom!
I wish we had a phone-in capability here because Angela is just going nuts here. Here we go. She doesn't recognize her because she wasn't the one to see her. Blah 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 blah. And she says Keith is wrong. We can argue about this.
Wait. What am I wrong about? Because La'an does see Pelia back in the 21st century. La'an does talk to Pelia about. Aren't you an engineer? Well, I'm not an engineer. I'm an art thief or a retail.
I work in retail.
I work in retail.
See, I think, Angela, I think what you're missing from what Keith is saying is those elements should still exist because the adjustment in time was the death of the Romulan agent. Not
adjustment
what
of-
happened.
Well,
not
also
what happened
the
just
lack
prior
of death
to it.
of Khan.
The lack of death of Khan is what saved the timeline.
Right.
But she also does say, like, I have a very bad memory for faces, and I don't remember, like, I guess if you live thousands of years, eventually you're like, have we met? I don't know. I guess. So
And I'm
200 years is enough time to forget somebody's face.
Yeah.
and I'm sure Pelia is a reliable narrator.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
That is debatable, of course.
Yeah.
I think if she sat down and thought about it, she'd be like, oh, right. Those two. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. See, Angela's of the impression that it's a different Pelia, but I don't think it is. I think
I think it's the same Pelia. I don't think it is a time because once
I
the
would
timeline
agree.
got reset, it's Pelia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think it's one of those time travel things that I know drives time travel people nuts, and that is, well, Kirk and La'an were supposed to be there in order to make it all work out right.
Well, if we remember
Right.
the beginning of Trials and Tribulations, when the Temporal Authority
Right.
officers come by, and they're like, "It's not one of these things where you believe you were supposed to take part in it." And he's like, "Oh no, no, no!" It's like,
Predestination.
Predestination,
So
right?
thank God.
Yeah.
We hate those.
God, we hate those. Yeah.
Um,
All right,
I
so
do-
it got lively, not between us, but between us and the audience. So there you
Yeah.
go. That's great. That's perfect.
so time travel. I mean,
Yeah.
here's good.
She's saying that the time travels don't merge. That's what she's trying to say, but I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see I don't know if they'll revisit that at any point later in the season.
Angela says, now I hate time travel.
I think I converted someone. Yes, yes. If when you start thinking about time travel and all the potential problems in it, unless time travel is just a background thing to tell fun stories with, like it is in Doctor Who,
Right.
which is why I like Doctor Who, that's fine. But when time travel and the intricacies of paradoxes are involved, it's a frickin' headache. I hate it. Just avoid it.
Craig Lubin says, depends if we are using the Endgame time travel model or the Back to the Future time travel model.
Well, the end game is that you can't, like when you go back in time, you're not going back in your own time. You're going to it's branching out to a different timeline.
Right, right.
So like you can't go back in time and, kill baby Hitler and come back and World War II never happened.
Right.
The Nazis never rose.
Yeah.
It would just be different in another timeline.
Right.
Which is how Craig explained it to me, although that is all just theory because we all travel. The only time travel we do is forward and at a constant rate.
Yes.
What was that comment? I missed it.
So Angela just said snap. Yeah. Which is different than Oh Snap from the 80s and 90s.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm enjoying this episode a lot more than I did when I watched it. I gotta be honest with you.
I did like Kirk's delight with poutine. He says, "There's gravy on poutine."
Yeah. Well, see, pardon me. Part of the charm, really, that I enjoyed of this was what they did with Kirk and how he was discovering all these things that he didn't really get to enjoy because of what happened to Earth. So in his timeline, there were the holes in what he knew. So and he took such joy in them.
Yeah.
And I thought the driving the car all over the place was fantastic.
That was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, but what's interesting is I want to know who the guys were that grabbed the wreckage and had it in the black van, because they clearly knew they were being followed after a while, and they knew to try to get away.
Well, they were part of the Noonien Sung Institute, which is, and I think all the stories about, keeping Earth, humans on Earth and the technology being leaked to them to, I think that was actually true.
Right. Right.
So,
yeah.
Like the perfect lie has enough truth in it that it's plausible. Craig says.
Craig Lubin says, we don't move forward in time, quote unquote. Entropy increases. I will explain some over a bag of edibles in a future entropy state.
I'm going to need a lot of edibles for that one.
I don't know. Do you guys think more highly of this show since we discussed it than we did when we started?
I enjoyed it because I looked at it as a character study.
Yeah,
the mystery for me was secondary to what was going on with La'an and fleshing out her character.
Well, my wife is up. My wife is up visiting her family in Pennsylvania, so we didn't have a chance to watch this together. I don't know if you can share watch Paramount or not, I don't know, but like Screen Party or whatever it is. But we're gonna watch it when we meet up in Connecticut for the 4th of July. So now I kind of want to see it again.
Yeah, I think Leo is exactly right. As a character study,
right?
It is a wonderful episode. I enjoyed the character bits.
Yeah.
The action bits were pretty good.
Well, now the sad part is I want more Kirk now. And I hate time travel. Pike fan. I'm a huge Pike fan.
I believe he is coming back.
I think we're going to get more. We're going to get more Kirk.
What's been bumming me out about this season is how little actual Pike we've gotten so far. We're on episode 3, right?
Yeah.
Says, and we barely had any Pike in this one at all. We had a little smattering in the one before that, and the one before that we barely saw him too. Well, so I want my Pike back.
Okay. By the way, I watched the Ready Room, which I tried to watch after I've seen the episode, because they always have. He interviewed the actor who played Kirk, who was like talking about how my agents were weird. Like they called me up like on a Sunday, and they were like, would you Zoom with the Akiva Goldsmith on these people? And it's for Star Trek, and so he's like, yeah, sure, of course. So he does. Yeah. And they're just like they're chatting, it's not really an audition so much as the chat. And they're like, we'd like to offer you a role. So, well, what's the role? They go like, it's the role. He says, and I go, what do you mean? And he says, I kind of knew, And he talked about how he had a great love for the original series.
Yeah.
Because they did so much with so little.
Right.
Which is something I find appealing as well. But he was very charming. He talked about how much he enjoyed. He said, working with Christina Chong, she's one of my favorite people to work with ever. Cool. We've become really good buddies. We're always texting each other. And, I think it showed. I think they had a great chemistry on screen, which was nice. I liked there are a lot of wonderful little moments in it that I enjoyed.
Yeah. Now, dear Angela says, I loved it for the character hijinks, which, yes, I agree with you. And shirtless Kirk.
Yeah, there was the point where they come out in the same outfits
on him. Yeah,
and Kirk's like, "I'm fine," and he goes back, and she looks like he hasn't pulled the curtain completely closed, and he's like takes off his jacket, and he's taking off his shirt, and she's sort of like trying to like not. She looks, and then she turns away. He's like,
he's checking him out, and then catches herself.
Yeah,
there was one shot actually when they're in the hotel room. Man, he must have made a lot of money playing chess, because one hell of a suite that they got, but we won't go there. But there's one shot of Kirk in the dark where he notices that she's come out to look at him and go back in her room, and he sort of sits up on his elbow a little bit. And I will tell you, in that moment, he really read as James Kirk to me. I don't know why. Way it was shot, maybe the lighting. I have no idea.
I'm enjoying this actor. I'm glad we're getting to see more of him.
Yeah.
So it's overall, I can't complain about anything. Also, this Kirk dies. By the way, he gets shot by the Romulan agent when they're about to go into the Noonien Institute, which they finally find.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm embarrassed. It took me so long to recognize James T. Kirk. And the whole thing, she's like, you're not going to kill us because you need to get, if you pull the trigger, it's going to set off alarms and guards will come and you'll be, this won't work. Right. He says, well, try. And he says, and she's like, I'm very serious. It goes, go ahead. And she just fucking shoots him.
Yeah.
Shoots him dead.
Yeah.
He doesn't die immediately because he's just like, says something about Sam at the end.
Oh yeah. Kirk dies.
Yeah. And that also was for her, this is the first person she's ever had this thing. I don't get the impression that she's ever had like too many intimate relationships or romantic ones.
Right.
I think she's good. She has her friendship with Una. She doesn't seem like the sort of person who's like, hey, let's get together and braid each other's hair and talk about stuff. Like she has a sparring session with Dr. Mbenga in the beginning. And that actor, by the way, Babs, and I can't remember how to pronounce his last name, so I won't try and insult him, has several black belts. And we're getting to see him do some of his kung fu or his martial arts. in
Right.
real life. He's like a black belt. So he's, fighting with her, and you notice they look like almost like proto Klingon weapons on the walls. If you saw, it looked like a very streamlined batleth, and that sort of short sword dagger kind of thing that has like three. I can't remember the name of it, so don't hate me, nerds. I'm one of you, but it was and it was a nice little moment. But I will say, I saw in my original point, they showed a preview for next week,
Right.
and it's going to be on Rigel 7.
Nice.
Excellent.
And it looks like there's going to be a lot more Pike for those of you.
Well, I hope so. Yeah.
Missing out on our dear captain.
Craig says at least Kirk did not go out like a spaz this time, falling off a bridge.
Well, yeah. Older Kirk, man, he's not as steady on his feet as he once was.
No, that's
but so yeah, he went out like a man.
Yeah. Boy, I gotta tell you guys, this hour flew. We have 5 minutes left for the hour. Not that we don't sometimes go over, but was there anything else to pull out of this episode that we haven't covered yet? Because I feel like we
did you want to talk about the chair thing?
Oh, I did want to talk about the chair thing, and I want anybody else in the audience that may have seen this. Hang on, I'm gonna be a little bit not as deft as I normally am because my mouse went out for some reason, so I'm using my finger pad thing here. But okay, so we all know that this is what Pike's center seat looks like. It's tilted towards him. The controls are tilted towards him, which is different than the original TOS chair where the side panels were flat because his armrests were on the inside. It seemed to me, in my watching it, that Kirk's chair was more like his chair in the original series. Now, let me see if I can get to the picture that Keith did with my mouse. Is weird. So we're gonna cut out. We're gonna drop. Wait, I gotta see. I love my other mouse better than this trackpad. So hang on. It's just not as intuitive. All right, so let's cut this picture, and then let's see if I can. Can I get to? Hang on. I want to get to Keith's picture that he grabbed for us. And it's being weird. Oh, stop it. I might not be able to get to it, Keith. It's down below you guys talking. And this mouse, the reason I switched to another kind of mouse is because it doesn't scroll well. There we go. Okay, here we are. Add to the stream. There it is. Get rid of this.
So,
right? Can you see that? Yeah.
I think so. You're talking about you're not talking about the angle of the forward rest that faces the station, the nav and helm stations. You're talking about the area where the panels are, where the controls are angled in towards
right.
the
In Pike's chair, they are bent in towards him to make them easier to get to. I felt in this one, they were flat, like they are on the bridge of the Enterprise from TOS.
All right. Oh,
so that's what it looks like in that picture, but it's very far away.
If you're talking about the surface, I think you're talking about. It looks like the surfaces where his arms are resting.
Mm-hmm.
It does look like they are angled towards Kirk.
Yeah. And as Leo points out, it would be something for them to go and redesign a whole new chair just for one episode. But
I think it's the same chair.
Yeah.
Now that I understand your question, which I didn't really understand before, I thought it was a different angle you were talking about.
I'm talking about how in the original TOS center seat, the controls with his intercom and his, his yellow alert status and all that, they're flat. They're not bent in towards him.
Right. These are I believe these are definitely angled towards him.
Okay. Well, there you go. Oh yeah. Angela brings up the revolving door, which I think was funny.
Yes.
Oh, yes, that was a nice bit.
And from outer space.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I think we covered it. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed having this episode to hash this out. And again, we went on a little bit of a little bit of a roller coaster that we didn't expect to.
Well said. Well spoken, Chris.
I have a tickle in my throat. I can't help it. Anyway, at any rate, so guys, live long and prosper. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up today.
Yep, we will be back. Now, there may be a point in time, I was saying this to the guys earlier online, I have been waiting and putting off repairing my laptop, which is the main way I run this show, for months. But there is something wrong with the screen, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And the reason I'm putting it off is because Apple tells me it will take at least 5 business days to repair. And, of course, we're on every week. So there may be a point in time somewhere where we have to push off an episode just because I eventually have to get this fixed. I can't see half of what I'm looking at. I have a second screen, and that's where I run the whole show now. So anyway, we'll let you know that, though. We'll put that up on the website if there's a time where my ship has to go into dry dock and be refit. We'll let you know about that. Certainly well in advance. At any rate, live long and prosper. Have a wonderful week, everybody. And we will. Oh boy! Now can I get back up to the? That's why I hate this. That's why. That's why I this drives me nuts because I can't scroll up with the damn trackpad. Oh my God! What a pain in the ass. Yeah, I don't know. My mouse doesn't work. So at any rate, guys, I can't get to the closing credits, and that's fine. Have a wonderful week. No dancing this week, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.